I expected this to be a really simple episode just full of Ferrari content, and it is, don't get me wrong, but somewhere along the line I emptied my bank account and spent every dollar I've got. But hey, what some people would call a savings account, I would call a enclosed race car trailer fund.
So a quick recap of where we currently stand. Just over a week ago, we took the Ferrari over to Animal Auto to break it in on the dyno. The only issue is we had a clutch problem. It was slipping. So I pulled the engine out, and I gave it my best effort to figure out what was going on inside. All signs point towards a throwout bearing to pressure plate clearance issue, but my initial inspection suggested that might not be the case. But frankly, the only way we're really going to know is to pull the whole thing apart and take a look inside, and that's where we are now. Some of you guys may recognize Dan from previous episodes, and he's finally made the move from the UK here to California, and he was eager to lend a hand. We got the transmission separated from the engine block, and it gave us the opportunity to see what's going on inside. Dan jumped at the opportunity to take some measurements to see if indeed everything was set up correctly. But unfortunately, the measurements weren't all that conclusive. It showed that we might be out of spec, but only by a few thousandths, and that shouldn't be enough to cause such an extreme issue. So we need to remove the pressure plate and the clutch from the engine and take a look inside. What we found inside was honestly shocking. One of the clutch springs had broken completely and ejected itself from the clutch disc. And then upon a closer inspection, we realized that every clutch spring on both clutches was fractured at the base, and some at the top too. So clearly we've got a clutch problem, but that wasn't all the damage that we found. The rivets holding the clutch disc together were ground down on the flywheel side. And that's when I realized we've got a clutch disc installed backwards. Initially, I figured I made a careless, boneheaded mistake, but I decided to look back at the unboxing and unwrapping footage, and then the footage where I took this thing apart to show you guys, and that's where I spotted it. That right there, the C sticker, is pointed in the wrong direction. You can see in the next frame exactly how the clutch was sitting in the clutch assembly. Those rivets sat against the flywheel and ground down. After I looked at the factory instructions, it was pretty clear. This clutch was sent to me assembled incorrectly. But I want to be abundantly clear. I don't really want to blame clutch masters. I don't think this is anyone's fault. If I had checked the instructions, I would have caught this error, and the onus is on me to make sure the parts go in my car correctly. After all, you know what they say when you assume. Although I wouldn't mind stickers that say flywheel side instead of just the letter C. Anyways, let's turn our attention to the front of the car. We've got a cooling system with a handful of issues that we attempted to address on the dyno, and now's the time to tear it apart and make some advantageous changes. Allow me to do my best to explain the issue at hand. Obviously, this is a mid-engine car, but the radiator is still located at the front, meaning we've got to pump coolant from the back of the car to the front and then return it to the back once again. In order to accomplish flowing coolant from the front to the back, we've got some odd coolant hose routing, and the result is some air pockets. Currently, the only way to fill our system is to use the radiator cap located off the side of the cylinder head. This is the highest point in the system, but the problem comes from the fact that the coolant flows through the rocker panels at the bottom of the car. It then pops out at the wheel well and changes direction, climbing straight up so that it can get to the radiator. This drastic change in direction means that there can be an air pocket at the top of this line, and that makes bleeding almost impossible. So our goal is to add some way to get the air out of the top of these lines. And on top of that, we need to add a bleed port to the top passenger side corner of the radiator because there's an air pocket there as well. Now, I know some of you guys are already thinking it. Mike, why don't you use a vacuum bleeder? Like this one. Well, unfortunately, I've tried it, but I haven't had much luck. My best guess is that it struggles to compress the AN hoses, which means it can't really shock the air bubbles out of position. I don't have any science to back that up, but that's what my intuition tells me. Either way, I haven't been able to get this to work, and I want a better long-term solution anyway. So I went shopping and I bought some materials for us to build a solution. I've got a number of weld-on AN bungs and a heap of AN fittings. And then I also bought an expansion tank because this is way easier to purchase than to spend a whole day making, only for it to turn out half as well. But we're going to kick this whole project off with just some good old-fashioned raw aluminum material. Let's get this stuff cut off in the bandsaw and then chucked up in the lathe so we can clean it up. To be frank, facing or truing up an object like this one is about all I know how to do with this lathe, but I figure the only way to get better with it is to continue using it and trying things out. These definitely don't need to be precision machined, but it's an opportunity to try and get it right, to get the tool to work in my favor and yield the result that I'm looking for. The end result of the part that we're trying to make will also turn out a little bit better. As you can see on the far left side, we've got the raw cut-off edge, and in the middle you can see what we just turned down on the lathe. On the far right, I hit it with some Scotch-Brite to clean it up and make it as pretty as I could. Now all we need to do is attach some -20 AN fittings to each end. If you haven't figured out what it is that we're making yet, that's okay, I don't blame you. What I want to do is insert a place to bleed air out of the system and add water in at the high point on each side of the front of the car. We'll cut the hoses at their high point and insert this fitting right in the middle. From here, we're going to add a bleed port to it, and then we'll vent that bleed port to the expansion tank I showed you earlier. The end result is a way to easily add coolant to the front of the car and to bleed air out. We really don't need much flow from this fitting to the expansion tank itself, so we're just going to use some -4 bungs and -4 hose. The end result is a glorified T-fitting. We probably could have bought this online, but that'd be way less fun, and it would have been way cheaper, and that doesn't make any sense to do now, does it? But with these oriented correctly in the car, it should save a lot of effort in bleeding it. So let's turn our attention to the expansion tank where that air needs to go. In an ideal world, these ports would be low on the tank and the tank would be much higher than everything else, but we just don't have the space for that, so these ports are going to be placed high on the tank to help facilitate getting air to travel in the correct direction. While welding one of these fittings, I had a serious bout with contamination in the weld. I had to cut it off, clean, try again, rinse and repeat. And it was a nightmare knowing that if I didn't figure out what the problem was, I was going to ruin this part and I'd have to start all over. And then I hit a roadblock. Alright, now admittedly this is a terrible place to pause progress. I don't want to. I wanted to finish all of this for this episode. But I just got a phone call. I've got to rewind a little bit. A handful of weeks ago, I got word about an enclosed trailer that might be for sale, and the price is amazing. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still expensive. I have had to sell quite a few things, scrounge up some money, and I'm going to empty my bank account to pull this off, but I'm not going to miss the opportunity. But I just got the phone call that says, hey, Mike, if you want this thing, you got to come get it tomorrow. It's a little bit quicker than I was anticipating, but with that said, I know I'm not going to get all this stuff done by the episode, which is tomorrow, so we're going to pause. I'm going to get up at the crack of dawn and go pick up this trailer. I'm taking you guys with me. We're going on a field trip, and we're going to buy something I have wanted for years. It's going to be a game changer. I can't wait to show you guys. This thing is amazing. I'll see you guys in the morning. So bright and early, I hit the road and headed towards Stanton, California. And trust me when I say it's fitting that this is happening in December, because this feels like Christmas morning. Alright guys, here it is. So what we have here is what's supposed to be a 24-foot 2008 Hallmark Edge enclosed race trailer. Turns out it's actually a little bit bigger than 24 feet, but we'll get to that here in a moment. The former owner used to race Formula 2000 and trophy trucks out of this thing, so it's going to be perfectly suited for our needs. The only drawback is it's been sitting right here on this pad of concrete for the last 6 years. So it's gonna need some maintenance, but it made the tow back to Costa Mesa without a hitch. Well, with a hitch, but you get what I mean. Alright, so we are back at the shop. The truck did awesome, as expected. The trailer is here. It towed great. There's only one problem, and that's, well, I just measured it. It's 2 feet longer than it says that it is. And then the tongue is longer than anticipated. So it definitely does not fit where the parking spot was earlier, where the old trailer was. So I don't know where I'm gonna park this thing, but enough talking about it. Let's open it up. Let me show you all about this thing because I am so stoked. When I say this trailer is big, I mean it. It's almost twice my height, towering nearly 10 feet tall. It's going to make an amazing home base whether we're at the dyno, at the track, or any event we want to take the Ferrari or any other project to. And I've been waiting for something like this forever. So let's get this thing opened up and I want to show you everything inside. Speaking of opening it up, let's talk about that big door on the side. Yep, it even has a door on the side so you can open up your car or truck door after you drive your car in so you can get out of it. How sick is that? And then there's the interior build out. It's nothing crazy, but we've got cabinets up top to store everything from fluids, supplies, or tools, and then we've got stainless steel countertops below them with a lit work surface. It needs a little bit of cleaning here and there, but I'm totally okay with that. It's worth the price of entry. Below the countertop, we've got a built-in toolbox, and this thing operates beautifully. The sliders are heavy duty, as are the trays, and it's built to hold up. And then we've got another storage cabinet with some of the generator wiring tucked away inside. As said, we've got our big access doors so you can climb in and out of your car, and then we've got fluorescent lighting along both sides of the roofline. And then there are the spotlights on the outside of the trailer just in case you're going to be wrenching on your car in the paddock at night. The floor definitely needs a power washing, but it's also in really nice shape. It hasn't been abused or dented, and it's holding up really well. And last but not least, the drop gate in the back has a really nice approach angle. I'm not positive that I won't need something like some race ramps, but this is going to be way easier to load than my old trailer. I don't know what you guys think, but I am just beyond excited for this thing. I've wanted something like this for so long. But there are a few things that it needs, so let's run over them. The first one is that this door over here, this side door that would be sweet for opening the door on the Ferrari once it's loaded in here. Forgive the street noise, can't get people to not drive down the street. Problem is that it's definitely too high for the Ferrari. It'd be nice to be able to drive in and open the door. I could build some sort of platform in here that the car sits on that would fix that, but I have a much better solution, and that is just not have any need to drive the car in. In this small door down here, with the space that's in here, what I think would be perfect is to just floor mount a winch down here that can then just run out and pull the car in. It'll mean I can load the car and unload the car totally by myself. I don't have to have spotters. I think that system will work a whole lot better. I don't have to open the doors once the car is in here. As a whole, I think this would be a great solution. It's also right near the power, near the generator, all that kind of stuff. But the other problem is, speaking about that generator, there's not one. So we've got power that's hooked up to that port inside. We've got the plug that should provide power from the generator. We've even got tie-down provisions for the generator, but there's not a generator in here, so we need to add one. So if you guys have a suggestion on a generator that I should put in here, that would be sweet. I'm all ears. I don't know anything about them. I don't know whether I need like a 120 or a 240, any of that jazz. Ideally, I'll find something that runs on diesel instead of gas, so it runs on the same fuel that the truck does, and then I can keep an extra thing of fuel in here or nearby or in the trailer and not have to have gasoline as well. But yeah, let me know what generator I should put in there. I'd also like to add onboard air to this thing, but the truck does have onboard air, so I'm not too worried about it. Got an air tank and all that jazz. Everything else? Yeah, man, I'm just so stoked on this thing. I know I keep repeating myself. It's just incredible, and what an insane deal. This thing was just a steal. I had to go get it today. It's the find of the year. I'm just beyond words for it. Anyways, I'm gonna quit rambling. I got to get inside and start editing this episode. It's almost the end of the day. Sun's about to go down, and I've got at least 12 hours of editing to do to get this out for tomorrow morning. So that's the end of this one. I'll catch you guys at the end of next week. I know I said I'm going to get back to 2 episodes a week, and here I am flubbing that 2 weeks in a row, but I already know it. I'm going to say it now. End of next week, we'll be back on the Ferrari. We'll finish what we started in this episode, and then we'll make our way back over to the dyno, because we'll be ready for it with a well-bled cooling system and a happy clutch. So, anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys next week, and yeah, happy holidays.